before we even go to your own thoughts on this, help us understand what revenue assurance would mean in this situation.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I mean, the term assurance is used generally in audit language, in the field of audit. And that's why audits are basically what we call assurance services. It is basically a service where an independent person gets involved in a transaction between two parties and provides evidence to the satisfaction of the party that has hired them that their interest is being protected. And so, for example, if you and I get into a contract where you provide a particular service to me or a particular product to me, and let's say your contract is for you to provide goods for me for Christmas, and I go and then get another person in your studio, assign them or contract them on assurance services. Their job is to check that anytime you deliver your good, it's a good and not a sheep in a good skin. And that when you give me a good, it's a proper good to the specifications we've requested. So when you take that very simplistic view of assurance, it is meant to give comfort to the person who has hired the assurance provider that what they have paid for or contracted for is what they are receiving. And that's why generally when we talk about audit services, audit is an example of assurance. You know, audit will go in, do a review of whatever service or product it is, and then give you an independent opinion. And so if you then add that to revenue assurance, basically it's a basic concept where entities, whether they are government entities or private entities, who are expected to receive revenue from a particular activity or service, will engage you and put you in there, put the assurance service provider in between to assess the contract, look at the entitlement, and make sure that the entity that has hired this assurance provider is receiving all the revenue it should receive, no more, no less. Now, it's very common in assurance type services where sometimes you hear most assurance percentage of what they are able to save you. So sometimes they even come to you and it's like a no-win, no-fee basis. In other words, I come and do the work for you. I can guarantee you that if I come and assess your revenue, I'll be able to check and confirm that all that you are losing, I'll draw your attention and you earn it. And so if let's say you are losing 6 million a year and I'm able to provide evidence that the other party is cheating you to that amount, which means you are able to get that 6 million back, then we can have that sharing of that extra revenue you are earning. And so the principle of no win, no fee, or what do you call it, a sharing ratio where if I manage to save you 6 million, we can share it 50-50, or I can get 10% of whatever I save you. That's quite a typical clause in most revenue clauses. Unfortunately, in our part of the world, it looks like you have revenue assurance services where the providers are paid regardless of whether they are saving us money or not even getting us any extra income. But in a nutshell, that is what revenue assurance is. You basically get the person to help you get all the money that is entitled to you so that you are not shortchanged or cheated by the other parties.
In this particular case, do you see that principle applying in the SML
Far
matter?
from it. The SML matter, very, very far from it. You would see that they are paid a fixed fee regardless of whether or not they are able to, if you call, save us a penny. And if we read the documents and listen to the documentary, it's very clear that even the CEO of the company SML recanted very quickly and denied all the revenue saving measures that they have published. The 1 billion they claim to have saved government, there was no science behind it. There's nothing to suggest that they were responsible for that. You know, you don't just take the fact that you've hired one employee and your revenue has increased from 1 million to 2 million. You suddenly say, oh, that new employee is accountable for that extra. There was no scientific basis for that. Fast forward, they then generated another 3 billion figure aided by their friends in the media, which, to be fair, I think Manasseh has mentioned that this morning you look at the media again, and it's very similar. They are all castigating Manasseh and team for actually discovering this and publishing this debt. But there is nothing in their performance or in their contract that suggests that it's in line with good standards on revenue assurance contracts. If you look at it, it's very clear that this is almost like a cooked deal for somebody's pocket. And this is clear because, one, the core terms of the contract entitled them to 24 million Ghana cedis a month, regardless of what they do. So even if they don't turn up, they are still getting that money. And as we can see, whatever data they are collecting, the GRA itself says we don't use those. Now, if your job is revenue assurance, it means that the inputs you are making, the outputs you are generating, the data you are collecting should be used by the entity hiring you to be able to earn the extra revenue that you are gaining for them. The VRA is not using that data. So that tells you and I that whatever they has no correlation with the money they are being paid. That is one angle. The other angle is capacity. When you are looking for revenue assurance people, pretty much it's like an audit. Even government of Ghana, they'll go and get the likes of PwC, KPMG. Remember the Supreme Court case in 2013? It was KPMG that was contracted by the Supreme Court to provide what? Assurance services. So they went through all the ballot boxes, counted the ballot papers, did all the assurance that was guaranteed, although they did it for free, which was quite patriotic. You know, in this case, this company, as we have seen, all they were doing was timber processing. There is no correlation whatsoever between timber processing and revenue assurance, because revenue assurance is a technical term. The person needs to be an expert in that area, needs to understand the way that revenue is generated so that they can identify the loopholes, close them, and draw your attention for them to get them. As you can see, this company's owners, their experience was in felling trees and pruning trees for export. Suddenly, they landed a contract for a technical area like what? Oil or petroleum. What makes it worse is they have no track record on it, they have no expertise on it, and they've just been given a contract where clearly they are not expected to deliver anything. They are just expected to sit there in the name of a contract and just earn money not even earn money, collect money that they haven't earned. So there's nothing in the contract that justifies delivery or the money that they are paid.
So essentially, the contract is the basis for the payment. The only reason they are paid is because government has agreed to pay them.
Absolutely. And when you say government in this case, you have a very weird scenario where GRA has not put his hands up to say, we are struggling to monitor our revenue. Help. It is rather the finance minister who sits in his office and cooks up this deal and sends these people to go and do whatever they are doing and collect money because he has got the power. On the blind side of GRA, on the blind side of what? Even the MPA, who already have specialized and more, if you like, effective ways of monitoring, upon which these guys are piggybacking. You know, MPA doesn't use their data. GRA doesn't use their data. Of course, Finance Ministry doesn't use the data because Finance Ministry has nothing to do with whatever is happening there, except the fact that the GRA falls at the Finance Ministry. So it's quite intriguing how a deal like this has been cooked. The Senate, this is in keeping with the pattern of fraud that the NPP engages in. This is not the first of its kind. You look at when they came in, the very first so-called assurance service they contracted was the $10 million road audit contract that was given to a member of Council of State way back in 2017. Somebody was paid $10 million and all roads that were already in place, the Cocoa roads particularly, including the Bangabok road, they were all stopped. The person pocketed $10 million. That is 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. After their audit for 2 or 3 years, they found nothing. So they were paid $10 million for effectively what? Nothing. Fast forward, you had another one go and cook up one for his own packet. Osafuma for Cruel Associates, another $1 million. For doing what? Nothing. And they got their money. And the Auditor General had cause to take issue with it, for which reason the Auditor General ended up being sacked by Nana Akufo-Addo. Then you have the Kelly GVG contract, also Wusu share, because she will not be outdone. She also went to contract $178 million for a company that was adding zero to the communications revenue stream. And as we speak, they are still there. Everybody is getting their share. So one of your earlier speakers said this is contrived loot. That is a correct and accurate term for it. These guys have nothing to produce. They are not like they are manufacturing anything or producing any service to the government of Ghana. What they do is they see a process that is working fine. They create a situation, put a contract in between that, knowing that the other parties are already doing the work effectively, get this person in for doing nothing and just make a lot of money and walk away with it. Even the finance minister is doing it himself. He has pushed Data Bank into a book runner position where they are earning 0.35% of every single loan that we took. And then what do? Just sit there. So the more we borrow, the more money he makes. So much so that in the first 4 years, he made 875 million Ghana cedis from the borrowing that we made in just the first 4 years. Multiply that by 2. He is on course to make over 1.7 billion Ghana cedis just because Ghana is borrowing. What value is he adding? Nothing. So this is the pattern of contracts that this NPP is engaging. And Shana, there is a lot more. This is why President Akufo-Addo and his criminal gang are bent on pushing Bawumia in to cover this mess. Because they know that the moment they are out of office and they get off that mess they are sitting on, the stench of the mess will overwhelm Ghanaians and they will be going to jail. And I believe that, look, the NDC has taken note of this. One way or the other, those benefiting from these contracts are obtaining criminal proceeds. These are proceeds of crime. When you sign criminal contracts and force the state into it through this whole state capture, that's effectively what has happened. What they are doing is worse than what Jacob Zuma did in South Africa. They identify any revenue stream, even for a country that is crippled in debt. Our dialysis center was down for what? 4 million Ghana cedis alone. We lost almost 20 people, 19 people died because we could not kick up a simple dialysis center. And it was locked up for 8 months. In that 8-month period, it was locked up. Every month, we were Ghana cedis to this criminal SML enterprise. Every 4 months, that's 100 million Ghana cedis. So in the 8 months it was locked up, we are giving 200 million Ghana cedis to a company when only 4 million, which is basically 2% of the 200 million we're giving this criminal enterprise, could have saved 19 lives.
Okay.
This is what Ghanaians are going through under this government. And that is why this government must be thrown out. And I think the Ghanaians must take note. The NDC government must and will prosecute all these criminals. And all criminal assets must be forfeited to the state.
Okay.
So those criminals in the NPP that are engaging in this, they must take note and know that the day of reckoning is coming and coming fast.
Thank you.